We are getting closer to that time of year when the best graphics cards might not be the best graphics cards for much longer. With new GPU on the horizon, expect to see some of our favorite GPU at the top of the list get replaced by something bigger and more powerful by Nvidia, AMD, and even Intel. Number 1. Nvidia GeForce RTX 3080 10GD. The RTX 3080 delivers the best performance per dollar for a high-end gaming PC, for a little while longer at least, and we're only talking about the 10GB one, at its original MSRP. There's also the 12GB RTX 3080, though that is even more expensive still. I know, that is a lot of things to consider when buying a high-end GPU right now, and that's largely because we're on the verge of a new GPU generation, falling in the wake of a GPU shortage. Though if you do pick up the RTX 3080 today, it is a huge generational performance boost over the previous RTX 20 series. The thing which really stands out from our testing is the difference it makes to ray tracing performance. When you can now get ray trace performance that exceeds the frame rates you'd get out of the top card of the RTX 20 series when running without it, you know that this is a whole different beast. And hey, the RTX 3080 can actually run crises. Nvidia has managed this by adding a whole load more CUDA cores to the mix in this 8nm GPU and updated Tensor cores for extra DLSS goodness in 2nd Gen RT cores to make with the ray trace pretties. The performance uplift you get over the previous generation is huge and pretty much unprecedented. The RTX 3080 may need a fair chunk more power, though you'll want at least an 850 WPSU. If there was one bit of advice for buying a GeForce RTX 3080, it would be that it's worth trying to get your hands on the Founders Edition if at all possible. Pick your expletive, because the RTX 3080 Founders Edition is dang great. And if you end up with another version of this fine-ass GPU, then I'm afraid you're likely to feel a little hard done by. Number 2. AMD Radeon RX 6800 XT. As a red team alternative to Nvidia's high-end graphics cards, there have been few finer than the RX 6800 XT, a highly competitive card that comes so close to its rival, with a nominal performance differential to the RTX 3080, is truly an enthusiast card worth consideration for any PC gamer with 4K in their sights. A key battleground for Nvidia and AMD this generation has been on the memory front, covering both bandwidth and capacity. The RX 6800 XT comes with 16GB of GDDR6 across the 256-bit bus for a total bandwidth of 512GB/s. AMD has an ace up its sleeve in throughput terms in the form of its Infinity Cache, which bolsters the card's effective bandwidth considerably, some 1664GB/s, by AMD making a 3.25x improvement over the RX 6800 XT raw bandwidth. In gaming terms, it means you're looking at similar performance, despite the very different underlying technologies. All are available today and with years of developer support in the bag. And it's no surprise to hear the cooperation between Zen and RDNA engineers had a part to play in all this, too. Number 3. Nvidia GeForce RTX 3060 Ti, the best value ampere to date. The RTX 3060 Ti is very closely related to the RTX 3070. Both utilize the same GA104 GPU. The RTX 3060 Ti has fewer SM enabled, with the same 8GB of GDDR6 memory across the 256-bit bus, while 17% less capable in core count than its pricier sibling. The RTX 3060 Ti makes up for it with some judicious GPU boost frequencies. Not bad for a $399 card, if you can find it for that price, and that's pretty great. And that's often just in terms of average frame rates. To keep your GPU above 6 TIFs requires a lot of tinkering. That can sometimes take the fun out of 4K gaming in the first place. It's a much smoother affair at 1440p, and at 1008p you can pretty much max everything out and just go. Number 4. Nvidia GeForce RTX 3070. Perhaps the only high-end ampere that's anything close to reasonably affordable. The RTX 3070 is also impressive for its ability to match the top-string Turing graphics card, the RTX 2080 Ti, for less than half of its price tag. Sure, it's not exactly a cheap graphics card, but the RTX 3070 is bringing ultra-enthusiast gaming performance down into a far more palatable price point. And it's also making high-end ray tracing and 4K gaming relevant to a much wider sector of the audience too. At $499, it's still a significant sum by any means. We're talking next-gen console equivalent pricing here, but it's hardly an exorbitant sum when compared to PC gaming's top graphics silicon today. In return, you're gifted a 4K-capable graphics card that doesn't require too much fiddling to reach playable, if not high, frame rates, and it'll absolutely smash it at $1,440. No question about that. Number 5. AMD Radeon RX 6900 XT. The RTX 3090 may have sat unchallenged at the top rungs of graphics performance at launch, but it wouldn't be long until AMD rustled together a challenger in the RX 6900 XT, or Big Navi. The RX 6900 XT hopes to knock Ampere's finest from its perch on high and send it spiraling back down to earth, and it gets kind of close, too, with 4K performance a little off the pace of the RTX 3090 and all for 1/3 off the asking price. For that reason, it's simply the better buy for any PC gamer without any ulterior motives of the pro creator variety. But there's a reason it's not number 1 in our graphics card guide today, and that's simply due to the fact it's not that much better than an RTX 3080, and sometimes not at all. It's another $300 on top of the RTX 3080's recommended price tag, and you'd hope for higher performance in both rasterized and ray tracing workloads. Yet, inevitably its ray tracing acceleration lags behind the competition. Even within AMD lineup, there's no pressing argument to pick this up over more affordable offerings. That's why it's strange that AMD is making a point of the RX 6900 XT being a card built for gaming first. While I'm a big fan of RDNA 2 and the leaps AMD RTG has made to get it to compete at this level in a short period of time are impressive, the RX 6900 XT is simply not its finest form. It's not the easiest card to recommend for the vast majority of gamers, even those that have their sights set on the high end. For most, the RTX 3080 is still the card to beat. With that in mind, for raw gaming alone, the RX 6900 XT is a cheaper alternative to the RTX 3090. Number 6. Nvidia GeForce RTX 3080 Ti. The RTX 3080 Ti isn't the mightiest GeForce graphics card that Nvidia makes. That accolade originally went to the RTX 3090 by a hair, and was more recently claimed by the RTX 3090 Ti. Opens a new tab. You can relatively comfortably set your game to high or ultra settings and get comfortable, even high, frame rates at 4K. With a vast bounty of CUDA cores and speedy GDDR6X memory, this card demolishes any game you can throw at it with relative ease. It's also more than capable of real-time ray tracing, courtesy of ADRT cores. The Ampere architecture is excellent, and stuffing more of it under that unassuming black end, polished gray shroud simply makes for a great gaming chip. It does, then, achieve what it set out to do: break the back of just about any game, API, or graphics-intensive task, even at 4K, and do so in a way that appeals directly to gamers' sensibilities. Though it's not quite the high-end price-to-performance champion the RTX 3080 is, the RTX 3080 Ti FE is in small part a better buy than an RTX 3090 FE. Number 7. Nvidia GeForce RTX 3060 12GB. The decision to load the RTX 3060 with 12GB of GDDR6 memory appeared a strange one at first, and in many ways it still is. It's more memory than the RTX 3080, after all, albeit slower stuff, and it tops out the RTX 3060 Ti too. It didn't stop the card from selling out, of course. It's also nominally cheaper than the RTX 2060 was on launch day, though it's not so easy to find it as a discrete number nowadays. That said, this card often crops up within pre-built gaming PC, opens a new tab, and for a decent price all-inclusive too. The RTX 3060 Ti remains the mid-range champion. Number 8. Nvidia GeForce RTX 3050. There is no graphics card under $300 that we would recommend bar the GeForce RTX 3050. Though it didn't take much to defeat AMD Radeon RX 6500 XT, the RTX 3050 is still a difficult GPU to recommend heartily. However, as it's neither readily available nor as cheap as it should be, the RTX 3050 is a much smaller GPU than the RTX 3060 12GB, And like any good PC gamer, we would recommend the larger chip. That said, if you can't stretch your budget any further, the RTX 3050 will deliver GTX 1660 Ti performance with the benefit of DLSS. That means you're getting a graphics card that can handle 1080p at decent settings most of the time, although some titles will push you well below the 60 FPS goal many of us aim for. Where we wanted at least RTX 2060 performance, we ended up with GTX 1660 Ti frame rates with a little RTX frosting on top. As the basis of a pre-built gaming PC, the RTX 3050 is the better option of what's out there on a tight budget.